Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel via multiple social media platforms, via Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and also via Twitter. Today, we have an interesting, conversation in prospect. We are going to be talking around issues of COVID-19 vaccination, that is the program, and also hear an experience of one of our, South African doctors who is now working in the UK, who got to be vaccinated about 2 weeks ago. South Africa is still trying to secure a supply of vaccines. They have not really secured enough for the population as yet. They have secured enough for the healthcare workers. So I want to understand, how are they prioritizing the people in Britain? So our special guest today is Dr. Sangxa Rozani. Dr. Sangxa Rozani is a homeboy from Umtata. He went to the same school that I went to, which is St. John's College. All right. He has just made me aware that I'm taking credit for a school that did nothing. All right, I think my confusion comes from the fact that our school was just across the street from your home. So I just you would be somebody who was at St. John's. You'll tell us about that. Sorry about that. But anyway, so he is from Umtata. He went to the same medical school as I went to. At least that one is correct information. He qualified in 1995 from University of Natal, now called Nelson Mandela School of Medicine at UKZN. He has practiced in South Africa for a number of years. And then in 2002, he decided to go and, practice medicine in the UK, working within the national health system. So he's been in the UK. I think this is the 19th year of him practicing as a doctor in the UK. So he is the right person to be able to give us insights, because I believe that wisdom is about learning from the experiences of other people. So as South Africa, as we are busy trying to come up with a plan on how to vaccinate South Africans, it will be very good that we learn from other countries that are already ahead in terms of the vaccination program, to understand, what is their approach, how does it differ to our approach, and all of those kind of things. So Dr. Rozani, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you, Pele, for the introduction. And I understand the mistake that you made, because I was right opposite the gate here in Zana. So that explains, because I was a daily fixture. But I actually went to Holy Cross High School.
Yes. Oh, I see now. I was taking credit for something I'm not supposed to take credit, Ngayo. We always think some of the best people about Pumemtata.
St. John's College.
We forget that there were other good schools in the town. So thank you very much, Doc, for agreeing. What time is it there? Because I know 12, that we are on a different time zone.
Yeah, no, it's winter. We're 2 hours behind.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, Doc, we are just going to have our chat for about 60 minutes or so. I just want you to help us understand in the UK, how are things going in relation to the COVID-19, vaccination program, as well as your own personal experience. So we'll start broadly around the UK. Now, how long or when did they start to vaccinate, or just tell us a little bit about the program of vaccination in the UK?
I want to step back a little bit, Bella, because this is my second time on your platform.
Yes.
We were here with Dr. Tony
Yes.
Then South Africa, I was saying, was 3 months behind
Yes.
in the pandemic.
Yes.
So we're trying to get people to understand what is still to come.
Yes.
And I will say we failed dismally in that exercise, looking at where we are now.
As South Africa.
As South Africa is. Even though we were able to see what is going to happen with a 3-month head start, and we were not able to do that. Now, on the vaccine side, we have still failed dismally because the UK, with Brexit, were able to secure a deal with Pfizer Biotech quicker than the EU. Even Dr. Fauci came out against the fact that it was licensed very quickly, and he recanted and apologized a week later.
Yeah.
So you can say whatever you want about Boris, but when it comes to this, he moved ahead. And he didn't just secure Pfizer. He went on and licensed Oxford, which is the homegrown one, but manufactured at the Serum Institute of India. But he was acquiring whatever was available at the time. So
could it be related, Doc, to the fact that he actually had a personal experience of being diagnosed with COVID-19, or it's just the way things happen there in the UK?
Now, as for the personal experience, I can't not go back to I've met many people with COVID. I shook hands with all of them.
Yeah.
Now, a guy who says that, I'm not sure if the ICU experience is the one that did that, because even now they are still making a mistake, which we're going to address when we come to talking about the vaccines themselves. But at least you have to give him credit for actually coming out as the first country to acquire the doses and to start the vaccinations. Now, these started about December, I think, when we saw the first lady to be vaccinated at St. Thomas.
Yeah, the elderly lady.
Elderly, yeah, because they started with a tier system with the elderly, but they had the frontline healthcare workers at the top, but we were dropped down to, I think, the second tier or third with the care workers, because there was a huge blunder early on with the provision of PPE and looking after the patients who were in care homes. So the condition really decimated the care homes. So this time they've decided to start with that category of the population.
Yes. I understand that there's some South African connection there with the PPEs. There's some guy from South Africa who had a big tender of PPEs, and I understand the quality was not very good or something. There was some scandal around that.
We always complain about economy and import, export, but seemingly we export corruption. But anyway, that's not where we are now. Now, because of that, they started with care home communities, and then they're working their way now. And I think as of last week, they were saying by September, they want to have given everyone in the UK their first dose.
Yeah. All right. All right. Yes. Just continue. Yeah. Just tell us. Now, so basically, the old people were the top priority.
Yeah.
The
so
next
80,
level was
then 70, and then you've got the frontline NHS. Also, the care home staff, even the carers, the people working in care homes, they're in the top tier. And then you've got the frontline here. Then you've got the NHS, the hospitals, community hospitals, the GP practices, and the community centers, and all those people, which is where we are at the moment.
Yes. All right. And then the next level it will be?
Next level will be, I think they're at 70 now. They'll go down with age 60 and then come down. And then I think up to 16, because they're not doing people under 16.
Yes.
And then, as I was saying, they want to make sure that by September, everyone who is eligible will have had their first dose.
All right. Now, it's good to hear that they are planning to make sure that everybody has had the first dose by that time in September. What about the second dose?
Now, I don't like that idea. And there's been many reactions, and the British Medical Association has come out with a letter because what they are doing is wrong. And as you know, with everything, the politicians will come to the party and the party flops. So the politicians have entered the realm now. The drug companies have got, they've done their trials and they have said, we've got a 2-dose vaccine.
Yeah.
The first dose should be followed by the second dose in 3 weeks. Now that's based on the trials that they've done.
Yes.
Now politicians now want to do the numbers game, because the reason they want to vaccinate everyone by September is because they will say, we have vaccinated the whole population, which is not the case, because they have not vaccinated the whole population effectively.
Yes, because I think that's my question, because the studies, the results that they gave out, whether we're talking Moderna or Pfizer, it's 94-95% effectiveness.
Yes.
With 2 doses, about 3 to 4 weeks apart.
Yes.
And then, so for me, to then say they are going to do 1 dose first until September, when you were supposed to have a follow-up within a month of that,
Yes.
then
Now,
it won't be as effective.
That's why I'm saying this is where now they're doing it wrong, because they want to quote a figure saying pat themselves on the back and say, we've done well, we've given so many vaccines. But the vaccine, as you've alluded to, is 2 doses. And for it to be effective, it's got to be given in that time frame. So what's happened now, they have said, because there's short supply, they want the first dose to be the second dose to be given after 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So as to allow many people to get the first dose. But now the guarantee of Pfizer being able to supply the second dose for the people who've had the first dose is not there.
Yeah.
So there could be a possibility where someone who's had the first dose then goes beyond the 12 weeks, which then nullifies the first dose.
Yeah.
So you are not giving people protection, but you are doing politics, which is why I'm saying, unfortunately, politics then come into play.
Yeah.
Because there was a press conference yesterday, and Chris Whitty was asked this question about 3 times, the chief medical officer, and each time he stuck to his guns. So this morning, there is a letter from the British Medical Association. They are pleading with the government to at least bring it down to 6 weeks, which I feel is still not enough. Pfizer say 3 weeks. Do it in 3 weeks. But now the other problem with Pfizer is that they're not making the noise saying our vaccine is a 3-week interval. But in Canada, if you look, in Canada, they even threatened to remove their stock if Canada don't stick to the interval. But here, they have not said anything. They're just quiet. And which is where the big issue now is at the moment, that the BMA is saying no, half this time. Now we've got Israel coming in with their study saying this has got to be done within the time frame, because even what they're seeing there is that with the first dose, they've got 35% effectiveness. And yet Pfizer had a higher percentage with their first dose. So they are still insisting that this has got to be done. Now, England say, can we have a look at the Iran study? At the Israel study, instead of changing the way that they've done it thus far. Because the study from Israel might come back beyond 12 weeks for others and saying we should have done it in 3 weeks, and that will be too late. The fact that they are seeing the figures, because remember, the trials were lab-based and in the trial group. Now you are vaccinating the population. So they are now looking at the population.
Yes.
In terms of the response from the people. So I think those figures are more realistic.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't enough time to do this, because it had to be done quickly because of what we were facing. So what is coming out of Israel, I think the British government should be looking into, not looking into, reversing this 12-week period. Be it 6 weeks, but I would like it back at 3, because I'm going to be trying to maneuver. When my 3 weeks is up, I'm going to try to maneuver and see if I can get mine in 3 weeks.
That is your second dose?
The second dose, yes.
Yes. Now, Doc, you've just mentioned now already that one of the vaccines that are being rolled out there is the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, right? Now, that vaccine, which was the first one to be released, there is the issue of the fact that it needs to be kept at minus 70 degrees so that the vaccine is actually, the right quality. So in a country like South Africa, I think that's going to be a challenge. We struggle with the cold chain of the normal fridge temperatures of 2%, of 2 degrees to 8 degrees. Now, minus 70 degrees, how are they able to achieve that, from whatever warehouse they are keeping these things to somebody's arm? How are they doing that?
I'll give you an example for the trust that I'm in. It's got different hospitals in different radius from each other. So they give it from the main hospital.
Yeah.
So everyone has got to travel to it. So once they take it out, they've got to use it within 6 hours.
Yeah.
So if there's, for example, one ampule, I think gives 6 doses.
Yeah.
So if there's 4 doses left and the 6 hours is up, or they know that they won't be they won't be able to make it to 6 hours with the people that they've got in front of them, they start calling the next people in line.
Yeah.
So that they can come in. Because if those people don't come in for those doses, that batch is discarded. Now imagine the wastage.
That's wastage, yes.
That is the problem with them. That is the problem with the minus 70, which is why when I was watching the briefing, the webinar, when Dr. Anban Pillay was unpacking this and saying, and from what he was saying, for me, Oxford AstraZeneca is the vaccine for South Africa.
Yes. So far, of the ones that have come out, the Oxford Astra, Zeneca, is actually. But anyway, can you motivate why? Just for the benefit of our viewers, why do you think?
You said it already. The cold chain.
Yes.
Because their temperatures are refrigeration temperatures. Yes. So you don't have the minus 50, the Moderna minus 50, and the Pfizer minus 70.
Yes.
And then you come to the £3 or $3, whichever way you want to look at it. But costing becomes the second part.
Yes.
Now, it has been trialed at 12 weeks for the second dose.
Yeah.
So you then get to do what the governments want to do, that is give as many people as possible and extend the period. Now, the efficacy, some people will say 80, 90, some say 70, but depending on what figures you're looking at.
Yeah, because what they said was that if you give a full dose, the first one, and then you repeat about a month later or so with half a dose, then you get about 90%, type of, efficacy.
Which they still need to explain to us.
Yes, but if you give 2 full doses, it actually goes down to about 70.
They need to explain. I still don't get
so basically, we're talking about 75% efficacy, with the AstraZeneca one.
But then, Bella, you still need to balance the fact that the minus 71, for example, in the packaging and storage, there is something called, there's a term they use where you can't move it more than 4 times.
Yeah.
So where it comes from, it's got to move 4 times. Beyond that, it's not usable. So if you're looking at the minus 70 and the minus 50, they are non-starters in the terrain that we're in.
Yes.
Now, I'm talking about AstraZeneca because we've got the figures, we know the temperature storage, we know the efficacy. Yes. I'm not going to do Johnson & Johnson.
Yes, I was actually going to talk about Johnson. They have not yet released their results, but they are talking about that it will be a single dose.
Which is the selling point, which is what was said in that press conference.
At fridge temperatures 2 to 8.
Yeah, but now, if you've got Yusuf Abramji taking his trial dose a day or 2 ago, when are they going to be able to give the first shot in the arm?
Yeah, there's going to be a delay.
Now, why are we in this situation?
Well, I guess one can take it back to, planning.
Now, you say planning, but there's also the Aspen Pharmacare arm of it.
Oh yeah, the fact that Aspen has got a license to produce this stuff in Port Elizabeth.
Did they wait?
I don't think they waited. I think they started, making
No,
the stuff.
no.
Oh, okay.
Did they wait? Because remember, the Serum Institute of India deal only came after that press conference, that presentation.
Yes.
Up to then, it was made very clear that the one that is suitable is the Johnson & Johnson one.
Yes.
But Johnson & Johnson one, I saw someone getting a dose of a trial 2 days ago. Did they wait?
Well, I mean, they've not waited for the outcomes of the trials, and that then worries one, because this is the same thing that we were worrying about with regards to the Russia vaccine, that is Sputnik, and also the China vaccine. I think it's called
Sinovac. Yeah.
Yeah, both of those vaccines, even before they went to phase 2 trials, they were already approved by the regulatory authorities before, they've even gone on trial.
Which is what you need to do. Which is why I'm saying Boris acted well, because he fast-tracked the approval, so that once you've got the ampules, you shorten the time from getting the ampules to deltoid.
Yeah.
Now, if as a country, South Africa still hasn't got jabs going, what happened? Where?
Well, obviously, we're not going to meet the targets that were communicated. 40 million people by the end of 2021, 67% of the population. The phases that have been communicated, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, clearly there is going to be a lag period with that.
That's why I'm trying to bring the point that if you're sitting there as a government, there's vaccine in development. I'm not going to address the column in the Business Day.
Yeah.
Because, okay, let's just leave it at that.
You cannot call.
Moderna was never going to be a vaccine that South Africa was going to choose. It was never going to be.
I mean, for me, it is really more for the US market.
Exactly.
And it's a new vaccine manufacturer. They've got no experience in doing this kind of stuff.
Which is why I'm saying
they were part of that operation, something in the US.
So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to address that, because it's looking at the wrong problem. It's not looking at where the issue is, because Moderna was never going to be a vaccine that South African government was going to procure, let alone that the author was able to call the guy and then doesn't want to give the number, only wanted to give it to Agent Gore. So I don't know what he was trying to play at, but that was never going to be the vaccine that South African government was going to procure.
In terms of the plans, of the 100% that has been targeted, Moderna and Pfizer are only targeted to provide combined 10% of the doses, 5% for Moderna, from Moderna, and 5% from Pfizer, 70% from AstraZeneca, and 20% from Johnson & Johnson.
Yes.
That's the plan.
Now, where's the money?
Are you talking about South Africa?
Yes. Because we started by a collection, and then we moved to increased tax. Yesterday, we were at increased debt.
You're talking about ideas on how to raise the money as a country.
As a country, because
we've been hearing different ways of how the money is going to be raised,
which tells you that maybe there wasn't a plan, because now we are at countries actually doing vaccinations. We as a country are still talking about how we're going to fund. And there was a 280 some odd million for COVAX that was missed. The deadline was missed, and it was picked up by Solidarity. So we've got too many problems.
So from where you are sitting now in the UK and looking at your home country, and you seeing possible dropped balls, what does it do to you? You know, just you know, as a proud South African sitting there.
Now, they call it 9 wasted years. That's what they call it.
The
And
state capture period.
They attribute it to one person.
Okay.
That's what they're doing. But at the moment, the coffers are dry. You can blame one person, but he belongs to, they call it collective responsibility. That's what they'd like to call it. I think they should claim it now. It's high time they claimed it now, because the coffers are dry. And that one guy alone did not stand alone and do everything that he did alone. He was propped up by someone.
Yes.
We are reaping the benefits. We are reaping the reward, the fruits, the benefits, whatever, bad as it is, but we're reaping something.
Yes,
from that.
yes. So when you do a comparison of the vaccination program in the UK, just a high level one, and what we are planning to do here, what are the major issues that give you a sense of red lights? You know, that, you know, I think there's potential problems here.
We're there already because it's January. We're still talking about percentages of what's going to be acquired. Now, the 3 companies you've mentioned already have doses in people's arms already, but not South African arms. So it's not something
well, you know, Doc, we could say, you know, at least there's 1 or 2 South Africans, you know, who've got it. You have got it. It's just that you're a South African who got it in the UK. But also, Urubet, you know, he managed to jump the queue in Switzerland, you know, and he got his vaccine, you know, I think on the 15th of Jan. So we will claim that.
No, guys, Rupert is blamed for many things. Many things. People hate Rupert. They blame him for many things. The man didn't go to a hospital in Switzerland.
Yeah.
He went to his business in Switzerland.
That has got a tender.
His business.
Yes.
The man's over 70. He's got comorbidities. The man's due a vaccine. Hate the guy. It's fine. But the Swiss politicians can complain all they want, but you can't have a guy who's got a stake in the hospital not getting a vaccine in his hospital at his age.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, please.
So you think the Swiss have a problem? Because, I mean, the story was more about Swiss people feel, how can a foreigner get the vaccine before anybody in the country has had the vaccine? Is it because he's got a significant shareholding in the company that has been given the tender?
Now, I don't know which passport he uses, but with the companies in that country, resident status, I would think, is something that is there. And if you are a resident, you are over a certain age, you've got comorbidities, and you happen to own part of the hospital, I don't know what we're discussing. No. No, man didn't jump the queue. He went to his place of business. And got,
you think the media is raising a non-issue, basically?
Yes. Yes. Man owns a hospital.
Yeah.
You own a hospital, you get a vaccine.
But then the guy from Moderna, the CEO of Moderna, has just come out to say he is waiting his turn. He's not going to jump the queue, you know? So people are now comparing that CEO of Moderna, who is waiting in the queue, versus people like Rupert, who is alleged to have jumped the queue.
How old is the CEO of Model?
Well, I think he's a young man because it's him and his wife. I think he should be in his. It's definitely. I think it's less than 40.
I rest my case. I rest my case. He's not waiting for anything. He's not in any queue. He's not wasting anything. He is not in the queue.
Right.
You're talking about a guy that is over 70.
Yeah.
He has got the means. He can get to the country that he's got businesses in and probably has a residence in, and walk into the hospital that he's a part owner of and get an injection.
And you don't think there are any ethical or other issues with that?
No, because if you recall, the hospital is saying we wanted X number of people to be vaccinated. He falls into that X now. I think it's 20 or 50, I can't remember, but he falls into that category. So he was on the list. He might not be on the list of what the Swiss politicians want the list to be, but of the hospital that he's part owner of, he was on the list.
Yeah.
So the only thing I like about this story, which is a nice issue for me, is the fact that people who are very vocal about vaccines and not wanting to take them are actually angry that Rupert has got one. That's the only part I like about it.
All right, Doc. So let's move on slightly now, and then say here in South Africa, we have a situation. If one looks at the social media platforms here, there is a lot of what I would call vaccine hesitancy. There's a lot of people who have got worries that, what if this thing is going to corrupt my DNA? What if it's a 666, which the CJ spoke about? What if it's about, Bill Gates tracking me, because they've put a chip in that thing? So there are many situations of misinformation and disinformation. So in the UK, how is the population of the UK embracing the vaccination for COVID-19? How big are these conspiracy theories in that area?
Now, the conspiracy theories here, I've not heard them as much as I'm seeing on the South African platforms. At work, I think one weekend in December, the shortage, the 6-hour period I was telling you about, when they knew that they were going to run short, they called and said, we need 50 people to come.
Yeah.
And there were about 100 people in the queue.
Yeah.
To take up those spaces in December.
Yes.
So I've not had people as vocal, but there is one nurse who was offered one in a walk-in center and actually said she doesn't want it to corrupt a TA. That's one person only that I've heard about. And I was quite shocked in the healthcare profession, but that is one person. But it is not as rife as you see it in South Africa.
And what do you think is the reason why we are embracing these conspiracy theories here in South Africa? We seem to be, very much, how do I put it? We seem to be latching on these stories. Has it got anything to do maybe with our past as a country and our experience with the West, that you mustn't trust? We're very paranoid as a nation, especially about things that come from the West. Yet within the African continent, we are not doing enough to produce our own. I mean, we have not been able to come up with our own vaccine. What do you think is the reason, really, why, as South Africans, we are embracing these conspiracy theories, in the way that you are observing?
Now, this is a very difficult question because I've got an answer for it, but I listened when Toteka said to me, we need to be able to win the people over, explain to them, not be harsh and try and be. So I was a harsh person who didn't understand,
Yeah.
But I'm trying to soften my stance, which is why I'm trying to calm myself down, because this shouldn't even be a question. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, here we are.
Yes.
Now, let me try and go back. The people that are talking like this, is it only on the COVID vaccination? Does that mean that the MMR, rubella, measles, their kids are not getting? Does this mean they're not getting the annual flu vaccine?
Yeah.
So those are the
BCG.
things, exactly, because as you know, if you want a job as a doctor, you need to be able to get someone to confirm your BCG scar.
Yeah.
You need to produce your MMR immunity, everything. So you know the occupational health. So those are the things that you need to have done. So we do it. So is this about just COVID? And then we move on to the next phase you've already touched on about people in high office or in relevant office who have got huge following, who come out and say the things that they do say. I personally feel that they need to be responsible enough to know that what they say has got a huge effect on the rest of the population.
Yes.
Because we then have a more difficult job in trying to treat patients because of what people with influence are doing. I had an issue with the CJ. I was told that it's his freedom of speech. But now when I try to exercise mine of saying I don't agree with his, I'm the one who's at fault. But if it's his freedom of speech to say what he said, I then also have my freedom of speech to say what he said is not entirely a responsible thing for a person of his caliber to say. We are not saying the CJ shouldn't pray.
Yeah.
We're not saying that. CJ can pray. But when he prays in public and we hear him praying and saying 666 vaccine, altered, we then have serious problems in the medical profession. Because people have been talking about this, we've all been getting the WhatsApps. But once the CJ says it, it's true. And it becomes very difficult then to try and change people's minds. Now, these people have got their own beliefs. That is what they believe in. We also need to allow them to believe in that. That's okay. But when they try to force the beliefs onto other people, because if you don't want to take the vaccine, that's okay. But you need to know that you then won't be able to do and enjoy the other liberties that you want. For example, if you are a person who wants to get on a plane and go somewhere, there's going to be vaccine certificates that need to be produced. If you want to apply for a job, there are some companies that are going to say, show me your COVID vaccination certificate. So those are the realities that we need to bring up. And the reason for that is because it's not your protection. It's the protection of the next person and the next person and the next person. So it's not about you. It's about the next person and about the next person. Then there's another issue that really, really got to me, where people were praising an actor on a TV channel who actually doesn't believe in the condition, doesn't believe in the vaccine. There's helicopters flying over a house and all of that. I'm thinking, hang on, you work for a production company, so let me ask the production company, what's your view on this? Production company comes back and says, no, people are free to do whatever they want in their space. But if you are working at the moment in a production and you work for a TV channel, you've got to follow COVID protocols. If you are following COVID protocols, then that means your actors get tested. That means your actors get told how to behave on set. Now, you then cannot say offset, they can do what they want. Because if someone doesn't believe in the condition, doesn't believe in vaccination, how are you as a production company and as a TV channel safe in the fact that your whole set will be safe? And then you keep quiet and say nothing.
In fact, Doc, just on that point, about a week or so ago, I was invited to a youth program called Daily Theatre. You know, and this actor you're talking about was actually there And one of the things that was very, very worrying for me is that when she came in at the holding room, there was no mask, and she was not interested to wear a mask. She was not interested to sanitize. And we were supposed to be in the panel together with her. And that means we were exposed to her. Number two, when we were actually on set, she was allowed to spew a lot of rubbish. All right. And the question then is, what is the responsibility of the production company of that production, and even the channel that it is, produced in, or is broadcast in terms of ensuring that we don't perpetuate. I was there with a lady from Africa Czech, people who always make sure that information that is delivered out there is 100% correct. The lady was mortified by the fact that somebody can be given a platform to talk to millions of people and actually say she does not believe that there is this thing called, COVID-19.
Thank you.
And that to me was something that was irresponsible. Both the production company that pays her, and also I think the broadcast channel that is broadcasting that, they should get that production company to take a decision of whether they will have a denialist who spews nonsense and confuses the rest of the people who are her fans, or actually do the responsible thing. So yeah, no,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Belly, because you are a better man than I am. Because I would have walked off that set. There was no way I would have stayed.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for raising that, because the channel actually told me, the production company actually said to me, when at work, we enforce it. That's what they said to me. And I said, but what about when she's not? Which is exactly what you're saying now.
Work there, she did not have, okay, I don't know when they are recording the soapy, I think it's called Scandal. The soap is called The Scandal or something like that. I don't know.
No, it's not. No, but I like that. I like that very well, but because I addressed it with the production company, I addressed it with someone at the channel, and I even tried to get it to multi-choice. And I failed dismally. I failed.
All right. Okay.
I failed dismally.
Yeah.
Which I think, when they say our procedures are known, what they needed to do, all three of them, the production company, the channel, and the network, they needed to come out with a statement, all of them. Yeah. We are not saying the actor must not act, that's her views, but they needed to be strong on their views as well, and say exactly what they want to happen, and support the government. I mean, the government is doing all it can, sometimes failing, yes, but on this one, I felt it was important that they came out, and I failed on all three of them. Not for lack of trying, I failed.
Yes.
But what she did was irresponsible, dangerous, and wrong. Okay. And they allowed it.
Yes. So now let's just focus back on the UK. You've already told us that, look, they're aiming to vaccinate everybody by the end of September, but it is just going to be one dose, and not, the two doses 3 weeks or 4 weeks apart. What other things worry you about the rollout of the vaccines in that country, before we now talk about your personal experience?
Now, they're saying up to September they want to have done that. What they're trying to do, even Joe Biden said the same thing before he got into office, that he wants to use up all the stock. And the reason he thought there was surplus stock is because he thought that it was being held up for the second dose. So if you vaccinate everyone by September, that's well and good, but don't forget that you need to give the other people the second dose. So there's nothing wrong in coming out with that statement, as long as the people get, even though they've said 12 weeks, but as long as people get their second dose in the 12 weeks, because going beyond 12 weeks, that means everyone starts over.
Yeah.
And you can't mix. If you've got Pfizer, you've got to finish with Pfizer. You can't go with AstraZeneca.
You can't get a second dose of a different
No, it's got to be the same one. So on the rollout, the main issue I have is the 3 weeks. It should remain within what the manufacturers are saying, second dose in 3 weeks.
Yes. So here in South Africa, we are looking at vaccinating 67%, aiming for that herd immunity as advised by those people, actuaries and other and epidemiologists and all of that. So why are they not going for, herd immunity level there in the UK? Why are they choosing to do 100% of everybody? When you know that other people may not, agree, they may refuse to be part of this thing.
Oh, sorry. They aim to have vaccinated all by September. I think all should be all who want it.
Okay.
Because if you don't go, you don't go. Because you don't want it. So I think it's all who want it.
Okay. All right. So it is not compulsory. Because in Brazil, if I remember very well, a few weeks ago, their legislature or parliament actually came up with something that, it's going to be mandatory. Although the prime minister was not very happy because he's one of the people who don't really believe.
I was about to say Bolsonaro
in COVID-19.
Yeah. No. Here it's not. People can refuse. People are refusing. It's choice.
Yeah.
But it's nice for the option to be there.
Okay. All right. Now let's then come back to you now as Dr. Sangxa Rozani. A few weeks ago, when did you have that vaccine, the first dose?
12th of December, I think, was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we got an email on the Friday. We got told that our site, they're going to start on our site. So we must watch our emails on Saturday because they'll start inviting people.
Yeah.
So I was working that weekend, so I kept refreshing my email. Nothing came through, but the people I was on shift with, most of them got their invitations on the day. Yeah. And then on the Sunday as well. So Monday, I started talking to some colleagues saying my invitation is not coming. Then I was given a number to call the number and said, hey, where's my invitation? So how old are you? We're still at the higher age. No, I'm BAME. Now, yes. BAME is Black, Asian, and minority. So we are a high risk category.
Minorities in the UK.
I said, no, I'm BAME. So, okay, no, that's fine. 5 minutes later, I got my email. I booked it on the Monday. I chose Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I got it.
Now, let's just go back to the BAME part. I think when you are in a place like South Africa, where the majority is Black people, maybe you wouldn't understand, how it is to be a minority in a country or in a territory like the UK. Now, my understanding is that most, when you look at the health outcomes across different things, whether we're talking mental health or we're talking infectious diseases, or even if we're talking lifestyle diseases, non-communicable diseases, BAME, which is the Blacks, Asian
minority ethnic,
they will always be the group that does badly. Just like in the US, where the Hispanics, the African Americans, and the Asian Americans are also in the lower ladder. Now, are you telling me then that part of the criteria in the UK, if you are BAME, you are then given, preference, or you are ahead of the queue compared to, a native of the UK who is a white person?
Now, let me go back before I give you that answer. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had, because the British Medical Association is very active. So they identified this risk group, and we had risk assessments.
Yes.
Now, in the risk assessment, you sit with someone from infection control and management, and you get interviewed. And if you don't want to work in a COVID area, you say, I don't want to work in a COVID area. I'm this age, I've got these comorbs, and that's fine. If you are willing to, you get capacitated with, because the surgical mask is the one that's being used mainly, but in this category, you can get an FFP3 as everyday use, and you get a full gown. Like people put in an apron, but you get a full gown as part for each patient contact. So because they were able to identify that we were in a higher risk group, as you saw earlier on, that even in the healthcare practitioners, people who were dying were in this group.
Yeah.
So that then stands to reason that when vaccination rolls out, this group would also be high up in the people that are given the vaccine, even though I'm also high up in terms of being a healthcare worker in the front line. But by virtue of being BAME as well, I then get a notch up.
So there is affirmative action for COVID vaccination, basically.
Yeah, we say that. But now, there's one thing I was saying even early on, that in South Africa, unfortunately, this part will be missed because of the demographics. You see the number of healthcare practitioners who have died. You won't pick up that they're mainly this demographic because of the way that the South African demographic is.
Yeah.
But it is also the same there as well. And you will have issues with the EFF, they are the way they are. But when they asked for the racial demographic of people who were dying, I supported that because it was going to show exactly how this disease is affecting the people in this category.
Affecting those who are in the lower socioeconomic ladder.
Yes.
Even
and it's happened in the South. It's happened in America in the South. And again, it goes to access to healthcare, demographics, comorbidities, and all the other things.
So you are basically saying darkies everywhere in the globe, they can't breathe, literally and figuratively.
Unfortunately, that is how it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Doc. So you got your email after you had motivated and told them that you are BAME and therefore, you need to be prioritized over and above the fact that you're a healthcare worker. How long did it take from that call to you actually getting the injection in your deltoid muscle on the right side?
If I didn't have commitments on the Monday, I would have got it within 2 hours. But I decided, let me finish my shift and do what I needed to do that evening and then book it for the next day.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would have gotten it on the same day.
All right. So that's quite efficient. And so you had a night to sleep over and think about this jab that you were going to get. We know as medics that when you get, a vaccine, there's always a possibility that, even if it's tablets or even an injection, you may react to that which you are being given, which is why when vaccination is being done, there must always be some kit on standby, so that should you have what we call anaphylactic shock or other allergies, then you can be given the adrenaline and steroids and whatever to try and deal with that reaction. So as a doctor who knows so many of the things that can go wrong, did you have any concerns or worries about you going to get a jab the following day?
None whatsoever. See, I'm not going to say fortunate. You know what happened on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And I had, I think, first week of December, I had tested positive, but was asymptomatic.
Yeah.
And going through that period, speaking to our guy every day and him deteriorating while nothing was going on with me.
Yeah.
And him ending up the way that he did. And then there's a vaccine available. I work in that setting every day. So I've already got immunity. I don't know how long it's going to last, but the protocol is after 28 days, you can get the vaccine.
Yeah.
That's what the protocol is here. So not getting the vaccine was never going to be the way for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when I'm going to be exposed again.
Yeah.
Not when I'm going to be exposed again. I don't know when I'm going to be infected again.
Yes.
Mind you, I'm not saying I'm not going to. I don't know when it's going to happen because I work in the setting every day. So for me, it's not a luxury.
Yeah.
That I can do it or I cannot do it. I have to. Now, it goes back to what you asked as well about family. If they say up to September, they will have, so which means the families are in the queue, but not now.
That is your wife and son.
Yes,
have
but
to
not
be
now.
in the queue. So in the household, you are the only one.
That is vaccine. So I have got to be mindful of the fact that every day I go to work, I put them at risk. That is what we do. So if there is something that is there to alleviate the risk, why would I not be having that?
Yeah. All right.
That is how I look at it.
Don't you have a sense of guilt that you have some protection and the person that you are sharing a bedroom with and the young man don't have, that protection? They have to wait till September, maybe.
It is where we are. It is what it is. So me saying I'll wait until they do, then I'm putting them at more risk.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have it now, and then when it's her turn, because he's not gonna have it. When it's her turn,
because he's under 16.
Yeah. When it's her turn, she will. But at least anything that is there to reduce the risk, I have got to. Because bear in mind, Bella, this is the other issue with vaccination. Some quarters are using it synonymously with cure, which it's not.
Yes, it is not.
Which it's not. It is to protect you from one, getting the condition, or two, having disastrous effects from the condition.
Should you have it?
There you go. That is the most important thing. But there's one thing that people are forgetting. Once you do get it, you can still transmit it, but it doesn't affect you, or it doesn't affect you as bad. So, which is why other people's behavior is very important, because you are not looking after yourself. This is what is happening now, is showing us the selfishness in human beings.
Yeah.
Because if people behaved, we would get out of here sooner than. And I also envisage, by the way, to spend the whole of 2021 in the same predicament that we're in, based on human behavior alone.
Yeah. Sure.
So having the vaccine was never going to.
It was a no-brainer for you.
No brainer.
All right. No. So, Doc, okay. So, any anxieties though before then, besides the fact that now you were clear you're going to take it? Did you have any worries about what might happen once you take it?
My colleague had it a weekend before I did, and she said she felt like she had a hangover, which is all she felt. So obviously, you cannot worry about what your side effect is going to be. But
do you know a hangover? We are asked for hangover now.
I've got the story. I can tell you the story, but anyway. So the injection itself was painless. If there's anything like that, it was painless.
Yeah.
And then we sit down for 15 minutes to watch for what you were saying before, the reaction. Yeah. So we sit for 15 minutes, and then nothing develops. Then you get in your car and go home. So I got home, fell asleep, woke up the next day, no problem. And then I think about midday the following day, very slight headache on the right side, periorbital, one very mild, 1 to 2 hours, and that was it. And then that night, second night, I made the mistake of sleeping in the same arm that was injected. Yeah. And the pain made me jump. but that is to be expected because that's where the injection went in. So I didn't get, I will say, any significant side effects at all.
So
But
you had soreness on the shoulder where you were injected,
that is
which
to
you
be
could
expected
get with even with the
with anything.
Provex.
Yeah. Now, the people who have had COVID at work, most of them had similar symptoms to COVID, and they were off for 3 days. And so what people are saying that if you've had COVID, maybe because mine was asymptomatic, so I didn't get as much side effects. But people who were symptomatic with COVID had similar symptoms with the first dose. But other people are saying you get the most side effects with the second dose. So again, I think it's behaving just like the condition itself. Everyone is being affected differently.
Yeah. So now it's almost how many weeks since you had
on
your
Tuesday? It will be 2 weeks.
It will be 2 weeks
on Tuesday. Yeah.
Right. And to those people who are worried out there, should I not? And the biggest issue is around the issue of side effects. As we were preparing for this interview, one of the people that I know, has got relatives, or friends who are there in the UK. And she then, on seeing that I'm going to be talking to you for you to share your experience, she then wrote that there is this South African who got vaccinated, and it looks like that person had an allergic reaction. There was a swelling of the whole face and all of that. And that person had to be hospitalized and was, observed over a period of 5 days and then discharged. Obviously, for you and me, we know that even with penicillin, that's a possibility, that you may react to, a penicillin, even with a flu vaccination. Those people who are sensitive to egg products, chicken egg products, they may also react. So it is something that is expected.
And on top of that, when you get there, they ask you, do you carry an EpiPen?
Yes.
Are you allergic to anything?
Yes.
Are you pregnant? Are you trying to conceive? Have you had COVID in the last 28 days? So there are some questions that they try to ask to try and sift out the people who are likely to react. And what the case is describing is just that it's that anaphylaxis you were talking about, which you can get with any drug. So I would say, if you don't take any drugs and then you say you are afraid of vaccination, well and good. But if you take medication of any kind, as you know, medication gives side effects. So you are bound to get a side effect there's no tablet that doesn't have side effects. Yeah.
Now, you've just mentioned something now about pregnancy, and maybe it's something we need to just highlight. The fact that okay, in the South African context, I'm not sure that side, and you'll tell us, because there are not enough studies that have been done on how this thing works amongst pregnant people, and also how it works amongst the under 16s, I'll say children. The vaccination programs across the world, most programs, if not all, do not cover pregnant women and do not cover, children. Is it the case with you guys there as well?
It's the same. Because remember, this was always a time issue.
Yeah.
So they licensed it and they gave it a go-ahead before. If they had the time, we might have the answers of what was. Now, if you've not had the study among pregnant women, there's no way you're going to be saying, let's give it to them.
Yeah.
Because you haven't had the time to do the study. So it's safer to say no than just going ahead without having studied it in them. And unfortunately, we were still in the same year of the pandemic. So there is no way you're going to delay just because you've not finished. So you'd rather go with what we have and then exclude the people you've not.
So therefore, from what you've just said, Doc, what I'm picking up then is that it is the responsibility of everyone who then comes forward to be vaccinated to actually share their medical history, especially
Yes.
medical history that may point to allergies,
Yes.
so that you don't have a situation where somebody is injected. They are known as people who've had, those kind of reactions to penicillin or even peanut,
Allergy, yes.
peanut allergies, which can be fatal,
Yes.
So if you've got a history of allergies, you have to disclose that, because you may be at a high risk of,
Now,
allergies to this.
You've touched on an interesting point, Bella, there, because this condition, unfortunately, is a condition that depends on the patient being truthful.
Yeah.
And as you know, the problem in the consulting room, you will ask questions to try to take a history, but you get more information if the person on the other side of the desk is open and honest.
Yeah.
Now, you take what people seem to think is the best thing to do with COVID, which is screening.
Yeah.
In screening, you will say, have you had a headache? Have you had a runny nose?
Yeah.
But if you need to get into a function, the answers to those questions are no, because you need to get in the function. You go into that function, you come out, your symptoms get worse, you test positive, then you say, no, in my screening, I said no because I didn't have them then. That is the problem that we have with this condition. So even with taking the history with the vaccine, if you want the vaccine, you will say you don't have the allergy if you want it desperately, whereas you've got the allergy. So an open history is very important.
All right, Doc. So you got your vaccine. You had those minor things, some situation, headache around the eye on the right side, and then what else did you have?
Just pain at the site, which is to be expected.
Yes.
The
Besides
night,
that, there's nothing else that you experienced. No. Now, with the other people, I'm sure, you guys talk, amongst your colleagues there who also took the vaccine, what are the common side effects that they report?
Temperature, pyrexia, chills, fever.
Yeah.
Headache, feeling tired, diarrhea. So most of the symptoms that you get with the condition itself.
Yeah. So it's almost the same symptoms that one gets when they are symptomatic of COVID-19. And here, some people may worry to say, okay, we know about respiratory symptoms and the systemic symptoms, but now you've just mentioned diarrhea. Not many people are aware that in some people, the presentation of COVID-19 may not necessarily be through respiratory symptoms, but actually it may be via gastrointestinal symptoms. And the reason there being that, those organs or tissues that have got more of the receptors of,
the virus,
ACE receptors, then, they'll tend to have, symptoms. And the GIT, the gastrointestinal system, the blood system, or the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, tend to have more of those receptors, and therefore you may present with symptoms there, with very little of the respiratory symptoms. Yeah.
Yes, and the case that highlights that very clearly is with the late Jackson Tim.
Yes.
Very open gentleman who will say exactly, there's been very mixed, very disturbing things, but people, human beings are what they are. But Jackson Tim was someone who would come out and say exactly what's going on. Yeah. He told us he was admitted with abdominal pain.
Yeah.
And that was on the last day that he was engaging. He went to hospital with abdominal pain, and he ended up being diagnosed with COVID. So that goes to your point that we've moved from respiratory symptoms a long time ago. So if you are feeling ill with anything, think COVID.
Until proven otherwise.
Think of it. And
Yes.
if your medical practitioner doesn't want to do the test or doesn't test, ask for the test. Isolate until you get the results. And wash your hands regularly with soap and water. Sanitize, keep away from social interactions, avoid crowds, maintain distance, and wear a mask.
Yes. In fact, one of my staff members last year, one of my staff members actually presented with abdominal pains that were very sudden, and she got admitted. And at the time, the doctors were admitting had not thought about COVID, as a possibility. But then, as a criteria for them to do an op, they needed to
do a test,
on her, and then the test came out positive.
Yes.
And so they had to now deal with COVID first. And after the COVID had gone, then there was no longer a need for the op.
Now you ask yourself,
open and actually see if because they thought that maybe it's some urogenital problem.
So lap and proceed. But now there's no need for a lap and proceed because the symptoms have subsided. Now, which then goes further in our profession now to say, treat everyone as positive. Because if you're not donned up with adequate PPE when you're dealing with her, thinking that it's not, by the time you get the result, you have not done the necessary precautions that you're supposed to do. So you have got to be able to protect yourself at all times.
Yes. Now, just at this point, Doc, I just want to check, the people who are watching, our viewers, if there is any question that you have to Dr. Rozani, about his experience of taking the vaccine, or any questions around how things are done where he is based, which is in the UK, can you then put your comment on the Facebook, or on YouTube, because then we'll be able to pass on that question to Dr. Rozani. He is willing to take a few questions, especially around his personal experience with taking the COVID vaccine. All right, Doc, so what would you like to say to South Africans that have not yet made up their mind about whether to vaccinate or not to vaccinate?
Two ways. First of all, as I said before, is it the COVID vaccine that the person doesn't want to take, or are they completely anti-vaccination? That's the first question that I need to put out there. Because if you're just against COVID, then what separates COVID from MMR and the rest of the vaccines that your kids are getting? Now, if it's 666 and alteration of DNA, unfortunately, I can't help with that one. If it's 5G and Bill Gates controlling you, but now why would Bill Gates inject himself to control himself? So that one, unfortunately, I cannot participate in.
Yeah.
As a human being, it's natural to think of yourself and to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But we are in a situation now where our behavior affects the person next to us.
Yes.
That then has an effect on your own area. It has an effect on your own town, on your own region, on your own province, on your own country. And there's something I forgot to raise when we're talking about Israel, because they asked the Minister of Health in Israel if he's going to share the vaccine with the Palestinians.
If he's going to share
the vaccine with the neighbors.
Okay.
And the answer was clear, no.
Here we're talking Palestinians.
Palestinians, yes.
Yes, in West Bank and the other occupied territories.
Now, to me, I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, what's the point in vaccinating all your people in Israel and leave the guys who are going to be interacting with them next door? but politics is politics. But they did say they're going to share the medical expertise and everything else. But for the vaccine, they need to finish with their people first, and then they will decide. Now, I'm using that example to the human being walking the street, that don't think about yourself. Think about the next person as well, because if we are always self-centered, the spread of the disease is from one person to the next. So what you do affects the next person, affects the next person, and affects the next person.
Yeah.
And I understand people are tired, people are stressed, freedom of movement is curtailed, business opportunities are falling. We are going to get back to some form of normality. I'm not saying normal, I'm saying some form of normality. But for us to do that, we need help from everyone. There's something that we cannot do, and that is opt out.
Yes.
Opt out as in we cannot go to work. And going to work means dealing with people with COVID every day. And the more that is happening, the more the freedoms that people are shouting about are curtailed because the situation is not being managed. And the reason the situation is being not managed is because the virus is still within our communities. The virus is still within our communities because people are still infecting each other in higher numbers. And the reason people are still infecting each other in higher numbers is because the crowds are still there, the movement is still there. So when you then say you don't want to vaccinate, have that at the back of your mind.
Yeah.
The effect on the rest of the world. And the alcohol industry is crying, some responsibly, some threatening to sue and all of that, but they cannot run away from the fact that they do have a slogan saying drink responsibly. So if you've got that campaign slogan, then that means drinking irresponsibly goes with your product. And we've seen pictures of casualty wards empty because of the product that they sell. So if we don't, as the world, work together, we are going to be talking about this, you and I, next year. Yeah. And it's going to continue. So that decision to vaccinate is yours. But what is the reason for not doing? You need to be able to answer that question. And you need to be aware of the implications of not getting the target number that is needed to be able to drive the infections down.
Yes.
And you can point fingers at governments. Governments make mistakes. They do all the things they do. But locking down is the way to try and arrest the situation that we're in. And the reason why in the situation, it's because the virus is still there. So if you don't want to take the vaccine, why don't you want to take the vaccine? Are you willing then to live with the repercussions of not being vaccinated? Are you only worried about COVID-19? What is your stance on the other vaccines? What is the vaccination situation of your own children? If you need a vaccine for work like we do you then say no and turn down the job?
Now, Doc, in the South African context, there is something that we have not yet discussed, and I want to find out from you how are things happening there in the UK. Now, employers in South Africa have got a responsibility to provide a safe and healthy work environment for their employees. So I have a responsibility as the CEO of my company to ensure that the employees who work for my company are not exposed to any injuries or diseases in the course of them doing their work here. Now, one of the things that the government is talking about is that companies or corporates may also be given as part of the occupational health programs, the right to vaccinate their staff. Okay. Now, the question then is, what if some of my staff members refuse vaccination? Because then they are exposing other employees in the workplace. Can I, as an employer, then take disciplinary action after I've counseled the person and they still sticking to their guns? Can I, so are there any discussions like those that side? Because the issue of health and safety, it's a global issue. Every employer has to make sure that their employees are safe and they are healthy in the work environment.
That is a very good question, but a very difficult question. It's what you call a conundrum. That.
Yes.
I've not heard any situations like that. I've not seen it, but as I said, there's one staff member at the working center who said she's not going to take it, and she wasn't forced. But it is a very difficult situation.
Yes.
Because now you've got an employer having secured the vaccines and saying, my staff, here is the vaccination. Someone saying no. Now, you've got a situation now where, for example, if you've got 10 employees, you've got 9 vaccinated effectively, working with someone who's not vaccinated, who then you've got to worry about what the reasons for them not being vaccinated. Is it, I'm afraid of the vaccine just because, or I don't believe in COVID, or how are they then carrying themselves outside of the workplace?
Because if they then get infected, in the course of doing their work, as they see the external client,
liability.
Right now, the liability to me as the employer.
Oh, yeah. That's why I say it's a very difficult question. That one is difficult.
All right. And then, Doc, as South Africa, we are looking to roll out a national health insurance, universal healthcare system of some kind from 2026. It's going to be phased in small incremental things, starting in about 2 years from now, a year or two, until 2026. Now, you are in the UK, where there is a national health system, which is universal healthcare. Obviously, there is the private sector still, which covers the minority, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that there is a national health system in the UK, it has helped, do you think it has helped, with the planning and the rollout of vaccination? Do you think a country like South Africa, that has not, put up a universal health system like NHI, maybe in a slight disadvantage? So, yeah, I'm just asking. It's really a hypothetical question.
No, I like that one, because we did say we're going to come back and cover NHI, because it's a whole different topic altogether. But
yes,
with the NHS and what is happening now, that is the best system I'd say any country should have.
Yes.
Because you don't have to think. There is, for example, at the start of the pandemic, there were about 1 million or 2 million people that received letters, and they were told to shield. What that meant was those people were on the database of the government. They were known, and the emails got to them and the letters got to them the following day. Yeah. Meaning that the government had them in the database, knowing that they needed to shield. Now, coming back to your question, the GPs in South Africa are private.
Yeah.
The GPs here are part of the NHS.
Yeah.
Which, if you're copying the NHS model, you have got to have, most of it the same.
Yeah.
Because you have to register with a GP here in your own area.
Yeah.
You see your GP. If you need to be referred, you get referred. If you need surgery, everything gets done, no fee on your side. We pay national insurance.
Yeah.
That covers that.
Mm.
So with the vaccine rollout, the GPs have got a database, so they can access that and call people as per their place in the queue.
Yeah.
And then we at work get done by the trust. So it's as easy as that. Now, because South Africa doesn't have something like that, you have to go to Nkazata with Adrian Gore, Guabs, and all those people that I mentioned to go Nkazata.
Yeah.
So that there's going to be the 1+1 from the medical aids, and then you miss COVAX, and then it's January, February, there's no one vaccinated. So that creates a problem. If you had a universal health system, which is what you're asking, you wouldn't be having those problems.
Mm.
Now, I've spoken to several of my friends who are GPs, asking them how far they were consulted regarding NHI.
There's NHI, yeah.
Regarding NHI, how they feel about it, how they think it's going to work. Because if you have the GPs private, that for me personally is still a stumbling block to making it work. But if you've got the GPs on the NHI model, NHS model, paying them to be part of it, so that you streamline, because the idea is that you've got primary healthcare. You need to be able to decrease the foot traffic into the secondary care by having a decent primary healthcare.
Yeah.
For everyone, accessible to everyone.
Yes.
So I've always maintained you cannot copy the NHS. If you want to copy the NHS, take it all.
Yes.
Don't take part of it. Yeah. And then we move on to the funding. How you going to fund it? And then you've got the situation that I already alluded to of the 9 wasted years. There's no money for vaccines now. So how is the money for the NHI going to be managed? And who is going to be doing that of the caliber of people that are there? We've seen the PPE situation. It played out in front of us. We're going to see the vaccine.
It's likely to happen also with the vaccination. I'm just throwing it in jail.
It's going to happen in a much bigger scale. It is happening. It's going to happen in a much bigger scale. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay, Doc. Let me just ask my colleague Nwabisa to see if there are any questions or comments that have come through. We are about to wrap up. We should be done in the next 5 minutes. Nwabisa, are there any questions there or comments?
Okay, Doc, we don't have any questions, but we do have comments. We have one from Nandi Pagasha. She wrote, I'm afraid South Africa is following the same strategy of playing politics. I asked the NDOH officials a question during our vaccine orientation. In phase 1, the target population is 1,250,000 and only 1,500,000 doses have been secured, which translates to 7,500,000 recipients. I also asked them the plans they have to ensure that candidates in phase 1 will receive the second dose. They just said, good question, and did not provide any answer. Also, take into consideration the first and second dose should then been the same. You cannot give AstraZeneca as first dose and second dose be from a different manufacturer. That's all she wrote. Yeah. And then one from Sakele Ndabeni, he wrote, I like that part of COVID-19 has fit, it moves. Any plans of taking these sessions to at least national radio stations? These are so fruitful talks, given the trauma our people are exposed to. I take this as a talk therapy. And then another one from him, he says, the damage is already done by the media. Our people are fed with total, toxic and wrong speculations about the vaccine. And then
I think there was the first one about what is going to be done or what should be done to get people to be more educated about vaccination.
Okay, so that one is from Wendy Bloom. She says, my question relates to the increasing number of people who are anti-vaccine and now acting as scientist relating to COVID-19 vaccine, and which is based much on conspiracy theories. So the question says, how do we educate more and have people make more informed decisions?
Yeah. Okay. I think, Doc, the others were comments, food for thought, coming out of Unandipa, your colleague.
And she's raising valid points, because this is what we're concerned about here as well. Politicians come into the mix and want to play with numbers, and yet the pharmaceutical companies have said the spacing between the doses should be X. Don't deviate from that. And she asked the question, how do we make sure that one who's got the first dose who's going to get the second? Those are valid questions. And she was in the training to be a vaccinator.
So, and that question was not answered. It was just acknowledged as a good question, but there was no answer.
Which, I mean, you can see from what she's asking, she can see forward, because you know that you will get to that point. And which then leaves us with wasted vaccines, which are already in people's arms, if you cannot guarantee that they're going to get the second dose. And as for the other one from Wendy about education, I mean, I struggle with this one. I really do, because we are over 10 months into this thing now. And we've seen the number of deaths. So what more do people need?
Yes. And whose responsibility is it to do the public education?
Now, I'll tell you whose responsibility is. It's a responsibility of the person who allowed a widow to go into the ambulance and go to a funeral of a husband who died of COVID. It's that person's responsibility. It's a responsibility.
No. Doc, I'm missing something there. I'm saying in the context of the country.
Yes, I'm answering you. In the context of the country, the caliber of leaders you have got in South Africa are leaders who will give a permission for a patient who is recovering from COVID in hospital to get into the back of an ambulance and go and attend her husband's funeral. Those are the people that are supposed to be doing that. The people who are supposed to be doing that are the ones who authorized the rebellion of Bathandwa Ndondo, who died in the 80s, to be reburied during a pandemic. Those are the type of leaders you need to be able to educate the people, which goes back to what I keep saying. The people will do what the leaders do, not what the leaders tell them. Because these premiers turn around and tell people what to do, but their actions speak differently. And then you wonder why the death toll is the way that it is. The leaders are irresponsible. There is no one to teach.
Yes. And there is a premier who actually went out and talked about the fact that some corpses are complaining of it's futu. They come in dreams and tell people that they are feeling very hot. And so Department of Health has to find a way that the COVID, the people who died of COVID should not be wrapped in plastics. Now, that's the type of leadership that we're talking about.
No, he didn't. No, but he didn't talk about that. He didn't talk. I will defend him. He didn't talk about that. That was brought to his attention.
Yeah.
As what was happening on the ground. That was brought to his attention.
The clip from ENCA was, it showed him saying that.
But that's what I'm saying. That was brought to his attention. Yeah. So what we then try to do is to try. Okay, I'll tell you off.
Offline.
But we failed. But the fact of the matter is that when he then authorized the reburial and then gave a speech there was no need to do anything else, because what else is he going to say regarding funerals and what people should do when there is a reburial of someone who died in the 80s during a pandemic? What else is he going to say?
Yeah,
that people are going to listen to.
So you can't say then don't go and exhume the body. Yeah.
You've given permission for it to happen. So how are you going to tell people to stop? That's the kind of leadership that we have. Now, those are the people that are supposed to be educating. But if they talk left and walk right, tough.
Yeah.
We're in this and we're not going to get out.
Yeah.
That's the type of leadership.
Yes. All right, Doc. Your closing remarks. Your closing remarks. You are so far away from home. You've got relatives here at home. You obviously concerned about the rollout. You are in touch with latest things happening in the country, as you should be. Do you have any concerns, worries, that? Oh, just closing remarks, yeah.
Now, it will probably be a repetition of some of the things that we've already discussed.
Yeah.
When the vaccine comes, take it. It's going to protect you, and it's going to protect your loved ones. It's going to protect your neighbor, and it's going to protect the country. Stay at home as much as possible. Avoid social gatherings. If you don't have to attend a funeral, don't. Wash your hands regularly with soap and water. Use sanitizer, wear a mask, keep your distance. And hopefully, within the year, we might see an improvement. Not we might be over it. We might see an improvement.
Yeah. Just one thing that came to my mind, Doc. I know I said it was a closing remark. Your Prime Minister there, Boris Johnson, yesterday, he announced, he's reported that yesterday, he announced that the scientists are saying your variant of COVID-19, I think it's called B117 or something like that, your variant is 70% more infectious and 30% more aggressive. Now, earlier this week here in South Africa, our 506, V2, we said it's more infectious, but no evidence that it's more aggressive. Now, the UK had banned us, South Africans from coming that side because of this variant, but it then sounds like it's much more aggressive, the one that you guys have there.
Now,
Any comment about that?
Now, I didn't want to address variants.
Yeah.
Because we are still dealing with COVID.
Yeah.
So whether it's the variant or it's the original Magoya,
yeah,
we need to be doing the same thing. Why are you getting on a plane going anyway?
Yeah.
Being banned, yes, but where were you going in the first place? So nothing changes.
London.
Exactly. What for? We can't go anywhere. Stay where you are.
Yeah.
Until we get over this. So this talk of variants for me is actually shifting the conversation to something else. It is COVID.
Yeah.
Stay at home, wash your hands, use sanitizer, avoid social gatherings. Getting on a plane going where? Now, Matt Hancock and Zweli had that tiff when they spoke about the first one. Yes. Yeah. And then there was an issue about which vaccine will work against which, but the scientists in the labs are working on these things now. When they've got all the information, they will tell us, but that doesn't change anything. And fortunately, you've just reminded me of something else because we've been closing and closing.
Yeah.
In the same press conference yesterday it was announced that as an incentive, anyone who tests positive and needs to self-isolate will get £500. Now,
how much is that in rands?
500 10,000. Now, we've spoken about 9 wasted years. If the government doesn't have money for paying the citizens to stay at home, it is a result of what they've been doing in the last 9 years, 10 years. And it wasn't one person, it was the government. It's the government that didn't have a fellow system. Like the UK had a fellow system, people are being paid 80 to 70% of their wages while they were staying at home. Jacinda has showed it how it should be done. All the other countries have done it. We don't have the money. Where did the money go? There you go.
All right. Good. Thank you very much. Nwabisa, is there any comment or question on your lines?
Okay, there's a comment, Doc, from Sekele Ndabeni. He says, God bless world frontline workers. Their families are living in fear of being infected. Shame. We are almost through this pandemic as long as we adhere to rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And then Yolanda Sowazi says, many thanks for a great session. And then we have Bukiwe Peya. She says, more and more education is needed in our communities. Let's be patient and persevere until we're able to spread the message across about the vaccination.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that all?
Okay. We have again from Nandi Pakasha. She says, we are constitutional state with Bill of Rights in South Africa. No one will be forced. There might, however, be for citizens to produce their COVID card for traveling and possibly to enter workplaces. The question, only 67% of the population will be vaccinated. How then will the cards be implemented to restrict entry to the 33% who will not receive the vaccine? So that's a question from her.
Yeah, I think that question, it requires of somebody from the ministry to come and answer. So we will keep that question. We'll keep note of the question. I hope that in the near future, one can be able to get the DG of National Department of Health.
Sandile.
Yes, who comes from the same university that I went to. Was he not your classmate?
Yeah, he was.
Yes, so please send him a message that, please, he should honor an invite here because we need to get certain questions answered around what they are planning. But thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate your time. When I looked at the picture that we used, you were wearing a, Louis Hamilton, T-shirt. At that time, he had 4 stars. Now we must get one that's got 7 stars now. If for those who don't know, Dr. Rozani follows motorsport very closely and is a Louis Hamilton fan and also a Manchester United fan. He's now a happy man, and tomorrow we can beat Liverpool and advance in that FA Cup. But anyway, Doc, thank you very much. And thank you to family there for giving us you for this 90 minutes. And to all our viewers, I want to say thank you very much. We appreciate you. And we will continue to try and bring interesting topics. Hopefully that will empower and to some extent, entertain as we empower. So thank you very much. Till next time.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
All right. Thank you, Nwabisa.
Thank you, Doc.